we are going to start where we kind of run through everything that has gotten to us this point in this kind of topic. We'll kind of run through all the pertinent information, like I said, and then at the end we'll kind of give ourselves an idea of what we think on this, what's happening with her, what's happening in the media, how people are reacting to it, and then we'll also kind of give our own commentary on what we think in this affects the sports world and kind of the overarching conversations that can be had about this that this kind of opens the door to. So right off the bat, kind of start, like I said, we'll run through the pertinent information. So I kind of took notes to actually get us to an understanding of why we got to where we are. So for those that don't know, Naomi Osaka is one of the youngest, brightest stars in tennis at the moment. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think she's in her early 20s, like 23, 24 years old, somewhere in that range. She's the second best ranked international player in the world. And I also read somewhere, I don't know if it's 100% true, didn't fact check this, blame it on me. I guess she's the highest paid athlete as well, highest paid female athlete, I should say. So
Yeah.
that's, I guess that comes from like
sponsorships and endorsements.
yeah,
Everything else plus that.
sponsorships, winnings, because she's one of the biggest named tennis players in the world, and she's one of those where she's ridiculously talented, young, that of course puts her in the spotlight just being that way. So that's kind of the gist there. She also essentially what happened with this whole situation, where we are at the moment, and then kind of what she said about it, and then what led to that. So essentially, where we are at the moment is basically she had made a comment to her fans over social media, I believe it was, basically stating that she was going to avoid any of the press conferences in the future, and that was kind of what she said on this. And then, of course, everybody freaked out because her missing the press conference. They fined her $15,000 for missing the press conference. And then there was a statement put out by the leaders of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments that are famous in tennis. For those of the people out there that don't know, it is the Australian Open, the US Open, the French Open, and Wimbledon. Those are the 4 Grand Slam championships tournaments. And basically those are like the, for PGA golf, winning like a major, those are like the majors in tennis. So winning those is huge for your career. So it's almost like winning the Masters, if you win one of those, if you win Wimbledon or something.
Right.
So that does that for your career. So those 4, the leaders of those 4 Grand Slams came out and basically made a statement saying that if she was going to continue to do this, that they would basically potentially levy a suspension down on her for the championship or tournaments in kind of a response to this. And the reason why they said that is their justification was that they said everybody should be treated equally and that no one should be treated differently, and so that this is how they're going to do it. You can agree, disagree with whatever that kind of relevant information. I think it's really just they get money from those press conferences, so of course they want their stars and best people to be at the press conferences and everything. And we'll talk more about the overarching conversation about press conferences even in general later on. So, but that was the statement that was released by them. She then came out and basically said that she's leaving or stepping away from the sport at the moment, and stepping away from the French Open, which is where she was. The French Open being, again, one of those 4 Grand Slam tournaments that I named previously. She cited that she was stepping away to kind of help with her mental health, and that she has been dealing with depression since the 2018 US Open, I believe it was. And I don't know if people remember that really well, but the 2018 US Open was the tournament where essentially she was playing Serena Williams, and it was a kind of a big controversy even where because she was playing Serena Williams, it was like her biggest she was a huge fan growing up all through high school and stuff like that. She loved Serena Williams, kind of one of her idols in tennis. And that match kind of went sideways because there was a couple faults that Serena got punished for or was getting punished for in the match, like mid-match while it was going on. And then at one point I don't know if she talked to her coach or had talked to her coach, and receiving coaching mid match in tennis is against the rules. You're not allowed to receive any coaching mid, as the match is going. So essentially, while that happened, Serena then was outraged with all what she was dealing with through the whole match, and then that kind of boiled over to where she ended up smashing her racket. She ended up leaving it. She was like unhappy, and then there was some like pretty distasteful, comments and comics and things drawn about her and Serena Williams, and it kind of that was a whole nother conversation overarching about just sports in general. But uh that whole thing happened, and it kind of affected her basically, where ever since then she's been kind of battling depression, she said, behind the scenes, and then cited that as part of the reason why she was stepping away. Now, what he kind of addressed is that a lot of people think that she was causing a distraction, or she was becoming a distraction, or about being a distraction, things like that. It's one of those where this whole situation happening, what she even, she talks about basically is how she's always had anxiety talking to the press, and how those issues have always been there, and it's not something that she's ever really grown comfortable with. And then, like I said, this depression that she's kind of been battling since. And then after that whole stuff came out, essentially her a couple of people came out in support of her. So of course, like Steph Curry came out in support of her. Recently I saw Bubba Watson, the golfer, came out basically talking about his own battles of depression. And a lot of people even cited, things like back in the day when Reggie Bush, or was it Reggie Bush, or no, it wasn't Reggie Bush, it was another running back, oh, Reggie Williams. When he was in the NBA or NFL, he was doing like press conferences, like post game press conferences, like with a helmet on, because he hated talking to the press, and it always gave him like anxiety. It's cited and everything. Which, in my opinion, now kind of, giving out all the facts and everything, kind of where we are. My opinion on the immediate issue, before we break into kind of conversations about what this means in sports and what this could mean in the future. In my opinion, it's something that people don't realize is that, and we always say it, but athletes are humans, and it's one of those where people just don't realize that, like, you can say all you want, like, oh, you became a famous player, you're in the spotlight and all that stuff like that, you're supposed to be dealing with this, you chose this, things like that get thrown out there all the time. And it's one of those where it's not really the case, for a lot of people. Yeah, there's athletes for sure that enjoy the spotlight, love the spotlight, and that's what they live for. But there's also athletes that like just were good at the sport, got to this level, and now have this all sudden huge sudden fame thrown on them at such a young age, and all the pressure that comes with that, being as highly ranked as she is, and all the the hype and everything like that. And especially with Serena Williams being in there, and we all know Serena Williams is getting older, and it's going to get to a point where she's not in women's tennis anymore, and that's kind of like been the icon of women's tennis for years. So it's one of those where once she does step away, everybody, it's the same thing with golf, where for years we've been looking for the next Tiger, and that we put massive pressure on young golfers such as Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth felt that pressure at one point. And now you got guys like Zalatoris, that's being talked about as ridiculously, and we actually even covered Zalatoris in a video. Colin Morikawa is another guy that's popping up too. It's just that happens in golf, is people are always looking for the next Tiger Woods. Same with the NBA, it's always looking for the next Michael Jordan. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way it works. And so, and same with the world of tennis, and women's tennis specifically, people are looking for the next Serena Williams. And so, of course, that happens, and then you get a young superstar who's coming into it, and guess what, it's one of those where at the end of the day, yeah, she's this talented and everything like that, and she's in the spotlight for how good she is and what she is as far as an icon for other tennis players in the world. But not every person is built to field the media questions, field the hate from the media questions. I mean, it's one thing to say don't read it, or don't look into it, or you shouldn't listen to internet trolls and stuff like that, and we can all say that in a perfect world, and it's nice, and we can all agree. But the problem is that for some people, they look at stuff, they look at the commentators, they look at comments, and on posts and on social media, and I'm sure she's getting direct messages, and I'm sure she's getting hats that are coming at her for things, or and I'm sure that happens to everybody, yes, but there's some people that just don't handle it as well as others, and don't handle the spotlight as well as others. And so I think, in my opinion, if you're looking at this whole situation, I think people need to kind of lay off it a little bit and realize that not everybody's built for the spotlight, and sometimes the spotlight gets forced upon you because of your talent and everything like that. And it's nice, when as an outlooker, I can go, well, she's making tons of money, the highest paid female athlete in the world, yada, yada, yada. That's all. It's got to be nice. I wish I was, half that, or something like that. And you can say all that, but then you also have to understand that there's all the spotlight, the pressure, all the talk, all the comments that get seen, just general things that are going to come up about you that you maybe weren't prepared for or never had to deal with when you were in high school and college and weren't as well known. So for me, in my opinion, and I'll let you give your opinion on the whole topic, but for me, I think people just need to kind of relax and lay off it a little bit. It's one of those where you don't know how people are going to react to the pressure and into everything. And yeah, I think people do need to realize that sometimes these athletes do need to take a step away from the sport or take a step away from the spotlight and everything, and understand that they are under immense pressure all the time, every day, all day. And it's nice for us to realize every once in a while that they are human and need a break, just like me and you. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to go ahead and give your opinion here as well.
So it's funny. So like addressing the thing in the chat about being a Marshawn Lynch type of thing. Yeah, that's also something I had been thinking of, like immediately as you started to bring it up. I was also thinking about this like in the past week, and kind of just connecting the dots here. But um, if you're looking at not like the personal side of it, I'll get to that as a second point. But like the first part of it, it's almost kind of a that there's a term for it. I always forget about it. Basically, when you bring more attention to something, when you call it out rather than if you just left it alone.
Yeah.
You probably know the word or the term that I'm trying to think of exactly.
Yeah, I can't think
Not
of it, but I know what
Schrodinger,
you're saying.
Schrodinger cat. It'll come to me at some point. But basically, yeah, it's almost, it feels like that sort of situation, even if you were thinking about it that from a business perspective, where like Marshawn Lynch blew up because of that. And then like it's like, oh yeah, the NFL is like really mad about that. Like they want to get their exposure, and he blew up his image, his brand, also the NFL in general, and it became like so much of a bigger deal and so much of a bigger story, and got like eyeballs on the screen compared to if they had just left it alone. So it's interesting because it's like overreacting in this sort of way. I had never heard of her before until just now because of the story. Now you have my attention, you have my eyeballs on the screen, and like me actually following a story and trying to keep up with it. And I am almost wondering if like obviously aside from the problems that she's having herself and she's trying to deal with right now, I wonder if she knew that this story was going to blow up, and because of like all the fines and all that, and she tried to get out ahead of it, and she said, okay, instead of actually giving you the coverage for me like doing this and then back and forth being a bigger story and stuff, and you getting all the coverage and all the money and the revenue from all that attention, like I'm just going to retire for now and slip out of the spotlight because that's what I actually want. Like I actually just want like time away from people, because I feel like she kind of knew that was going to be a bigger thing and blow up. So interesting from the business side, because I wonder if they were just like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll fine you and make a story out of it, and now it's going to get even bigger. It's going to help us. $15,000 to you, whatever, we get that. That's a negligible amount of money to them, but just in the news media coverage, I thought that was kind of interesting too. So good for her for like completely getting out in front of that and taking away any advantage or anything else that came up of it. But that's for the business side of it. For the personal side of it, yeah, I absolutely understand what she would want to do with that. I like, even in terms of not even like getting anxiety from talking about questions and getting questions from reporters and fielding them all the time. That has to be such an aggravating job to just hear and see the same thing, like the same stupid questions over and over again, and come up with like more creative responses to the same things. Figure this thing out, but like say it in a diplomatic way, which you don't actually want to say. Like I know they're gonna always be doing that for their news coverage and what have you, but um, completely forgetting about the anxiety side of it. Like I can understand why she would hate doing press conferences. It seems like all athletes, for the most part, seem to, and having to shoulder that constantly over and over and over again. I don't know if like more context behind like if there was there a certain event that happened that she kept on getting asked about, or was there invasive parts of like her personal life that reporters are starting to get into, or was it just like in general the news coverage, the day to day, like, oh, how do you feel about this person, how do you that sort of thing.
I think I think if I remember looking at it, there wasn't anything specific that kind of like immediately drew her to make this decision, but it was one of those where it just kind of came about over the course of time. And I do remember, I actually forgot to mention this. I did want to throw this in there. I did read too that when she actually won the U.S. Open match over Serena Williams back in 2018, and that was huge or whatever.
Yeah.
When that whole drama happened, people were actually like, I read these comments, so they exist, and I'm not just saying this to like throw shade at people or like give light or help to her or whatever that's out of context. No, I read these actual posts. And saw these things. But basically, people were actually commenting, like saying rude stuff to her, basically as if like it was a bad thing that she won against Serena when Serena was getting like those faults and like punishment. So like this girl couldn't even celebrate like her winning these like big matches against big people and like becoming a household name because she was starting to already get not overshadowed by the whole Serena stuff, but then also stuff thrown at her about like even just beating Serena during a match where Serena wasn't at her best or whatever people had to say. And so that I'm sure that probably started, especially just being at a young age and being so excited and playing your idol and everything, for it to go so wrong the way it did. And then everything after that, of course, so with all the pressure and everything, I think that's what kind of added into it. So
Yeah, I mean, people always have problems with like the new guard coming in, taking over with things. I mean, you see that with, I mean, you could any number of players. I mean, okay, the first thing you could talk about for later is like assuming like if you'd say LeBron or something is starting to age out, whatever. Like every team or everyone that's going to beat him is going to get a ton of hate everywhere and online and everything because people are so attached to that. So I'm not really surprised by that. That's kind of sad that it can't be a thing. I mean, I kind of get it. Like, yeah, obviously it's sad because people are stupid, but I see them as being like, okay, I gotten so attached to this person for so many years now. Now I'm seeing them fade away. It's making me realize I'm old, and also their time's gone, and now my time's going. Maybe there's a lot of conflicting emotions with what's going on with that, and that's part of the reason why people are so violent and like mouthy about it. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised by that. You just don't hear about people getting affected by it as much because it's just like, oh yeah, that's just the way it is. And I guess most people are fine with that and just okay with it. It's just your classic like hometown bar take. It'd just be like, they're getting paid so much money. What are they complaining about? They got nothing to
yep.
complain about. They could just pay, like literally just the one where you just go, yeah, dude, for sure, and like, okay, and then look away.
Yeah. Yeah, like I understand that celebrities give up a certain amount of privacy for their celebrity status. I understand that that's a thing. I also understand that they make a lot of money and they're compensated well for some of that. You could say, but there is something to say about people, especially in sports, because sports are so unique in the sense that a household name like a Tom Cruise, for instance, like he's been a Tom Cruise since since he started his first couple movies and became famous. Whereas it's one of those where like athletes can kind of come from literally nowhere, like grow up in, the, poverty stricken area of a city and suddenly be vaulted into where they're getting paid millions of dollars a year and are in the spotlight and are talked about, amongst millions of people across the world. And so it's one of those where not everybody's, able to handle all that. And not everybody should be able to handle that because it's not a normal thing. So I get that, in her sense that this is kind of built up from that. And I could see why, being so young as you are and finally making a name for yourself and then have that be in such a not like a bad way, but just in such a like sour taste in your mouth kind of feel where you win against your idol and that should be like almost passing the torch moment maybe between two careers, which would be maybe how it would go in a normal situation, but in the unique situation that it happened and then with the way the fans were and the way that it all went down and then I could see how that would start your whole path of then you start noticing the downside to things in the future and then the press conferences get too much and then it's just one of those where you just have to step away from the sport and just be like, okay, I need a minute to process everything and I need to actually like get myself right because I'm literally a 20 something year old phenom in the sport and I need to figure out what that means for me and what I want out of this. So I get it.
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, she's obviously like, it's not like she's at the end of her career. She's got years and needs to invest the time, now make herself feel better and back and all. Have plenty of time to do that. Does this mean I'm assuming she already has made that decision, but she's out for like the competitions that are coming up that you said that are coming up very
I
soon?
don't. I don't know if she said that she was done for competitions in the future, or any competition in the future. I don't know if she took herself out of those. I just know that she took herself out of the current French Open, the
Okay,
Grand
yeah.
Slam tournament going on, and then is just stepping away from tennis for the moment. So I don't know if it's one of those where she just needs like a week or two by herself away from everything to, get right, or if it will be something that continues in the future. But I just know that that's at the moment what it seems to be, is that she just stepped away from the current tournament.